So we're still in brioche flat, two color brioche in the flat, and we're going to just talk about some of the most common increases. So right now you can see that I am on my light side because I have my columns of light stitches with my little brioche looking pearls right there. And when we flip it to the other side, we can see that's the dark side because I have my columns of dark stitches. So we're going to do three increases. The first one is a bark yarn over bark. If you in your knitting have ever done a knit one yarn over knit one, it's the same thing. The second increase is a burp yarn over burp. Again, that is like doing a purl yarn over purl. We're just utilizing the brioche stitches for that. And the final one is a four stitch, and that is a 4-stitch increase, basically doing the same thing, just adding in yet another. Because it gets too long to say burp yarn over burp yarn over burp. So that's kind of what we're looking at. All right, so I am on my light side. I'm going to be working with my light color, and we're going to go ahead and do a bark yarn over bark first, and I'm just going to get a few stitches in. So I've just worked my selvage stitch. I'm going to go ahead and slip one right and brioche knit, my yarn forward, slip one and brioche knit, and my yarn forward and slip one. Now, I'm right here at a brioche knit stitch. So to work the bark yarn over bark, I'm going to come into the stitch like I normally would. I'm going to come through, but I'm not going to take the stitch off of my left-hand needle. I'm going to yarn over, come back into the stitch, and then take it off. And that takes me from 1 stitch essentially to 3. So that's a 2-stitch increase. I'm going to just go forward a couple and show that to you throwing style. So my yarn is forward. I'm going to slip one. I'm going to knit my next one. Brioche knit my next one. Right? Yarn forward, slip. When I go to bark that next one, I'm going to go ahead and do an increase. I'm going to pop into that stitch. I'm going to come around. Instead of taking the stitch off, I'm going to yarn over again, go back into that stitch, knit it one more time, and again, voila, I've got 3 of those white stitches. For the double stitch increase, bring my yarn forward, or the 4-stitch increase rather, I would, let me just get a couple stitches away, and bring my yarn forward. So this is going to be the BR4 stitch. Right? Okay, so I'm going to come into the stitch, I'm going to work it once, I'm going to yarn over once, I'm going to work the stitch a second time, I'm going to yarn over a second time, and I'm going to work the stitch again. And that's going to give me my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches, which means I have a 4-stitch increase. Let me do that for you in continental style. Work forward, enter the stitch, right, work it once, yarn over, enter the stitch again, work it once, yarn over, and enter the stitch again. And again, voila, I have my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so we can see our increases, right, all over there. And I'm still on my light side, but I have to work my dark color. So what I'm going to show you in this one is when you get to those little increases, what do you do? Obviously, you're always going to follow your pattern, and your pattern should tell you what you're going to do to them. But there's also some basic logic in knitting, right? And certainly, you know, that applies to brioche as well, even though when you're new to it, it may not feel like it. So I'm going to get to my little 3 guys right here, right? I've just done a brioche purl, right? A burp. So that means my next step would automatically be that I'm going to find a single stitch and give it a yarn over. So that first one, I'm going to bring my yarn forward, slip that stitch, right? And then I am on the brioche purl side with my dark color. So that means my middle stitch, I'm going to go ahead and purl. If you were doing this on the knit side, you would knit it, right? My next stitch is a single stitch. I'm going to bring my yarn forward, and I'm going to go ahead and give it that yarn over. Then I'm going to come right back to working my normal brioche until I get to another one of those little threesomes. Let me go ahead and get my yarn into my right hand. So if you're throwing, you're doing the same thing. You're going to go ahead and slide that first one and give it a yarn over. You're in the middle one, you're going to go ahead and give it a little purl. And in your next one, you're going to give it a yarn over and be ready to pop in for a brioche purl again. When you get to your 4-stitch increases, it's the same thing. You just do it yet again. So, oops. Okay, there we go. I'm going to keep in throwing for a second. I find my first one. My last stitch was a brioche purl, which means my first stitch is going to be a yarn over, a slip-one yarn over front, right? And then I'm going to purl. And then I have a slip-one yarn over front, and then a purl, and then a slip-one yarn over front. I'm going back to my normal brioche purl, and I'm going to go ahead and switch to continental. Thank goodness. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and just keep working as I normally would work until I see my handy little four stitch increase, or my 5 little stitches right there. Slip one yarn over, purl my next one, right? Bring my yarn's already forward, slip one yarn over, purl the next one, slip one yarn over, and I'm right back into my brioche. So that's how you're going to handle those. I'm going to get to the other side and show you how to do that on the purl side. It's basically the same thing. I'm pretty sure you could figure it out, but I'll show it to you just in case. Thanks. Okay, so now I'm on my dark side, and so now we're going to do the burp yarn over burp. And you can actually see the really pretty kind of clusters you get from the increases on the other side. And you will normally get this little hole. And if you think about it, when you do a knit one yarn over knit one, oftentimes it's just enlarging that stitch as well. So don't freak out about that. That's going to happen. Okay, I'm working my light color, but I'm going to be working it in purl. So I'm going to work my first stitch as a purl stitch, bring my yarn forward and slip, right, brioche purl. And I'm going to work my burp one yarn over burp one right here. Slip one and yarn over. So I'm going to enter that stitch and I'm going to purl it once but not take it off my needle. I'm going to come over the needle, enter that stitch again and purl. And once again, I've got those 3 stitches. So I'm going to just keep going in my usual pattern. When you get to the stitches from the previous row, just make sure that you're keeping them in the same exact order, and you should be able to see that fairly easily, right? Now, I'm going to switch to throwing. I've just gone ahead and done my slip one yarn over. I'm at a center little brioche purl. I'm going to enter that brioche purl. I'm going to work it once but not take the stitch off the needle. I'm going to come around the needle, come back into that stitch, work it one more time and off. And that is your brioche purl. Once again, when you slide back and you're coming back and working them, you're just going to work them in the correct order. You're always following in the same order, right? The brioche knit, and then a slip one yarn over, knit, slip one yarn over. So it's the same exact thing. So hopefully that'll help you out a little bit with those increases. Thanks. So I realized in working my last row that I actually, instead of doing a slip one yarn over, I worked that stitch. I'm going to tell you this is just one of those common things because you have like years and years and years of muscle memory built up for purling more than slipping one yarning over. So I thought since I have it right there, I would go ahead and just show you how to fix it. So I'm just going to work in pattern over to that spot. And one of the ways we're going to see it is, right, I can see this is my little brioche purl. And then I'm getting over here. I'm never going to have 3 in a row that I have to slip one yarn over, right? It's always in every other thing. So I'm going to do my slip one yarn over here, and this is the one that I messed up on. So I'm going to turn my work, and what I want you to see is from this side, it looks like poo, right? You can totally see what's wrong. So very gently, you're just going to take that one stitch off, you're going to put it back on the needle, and you're going to keep that yarn over top of it. I'm going to turn my work back and see now it looks like every one of my usual slip one yarn overs. And so now I can just go ahead and actually get my right thing there and brioche purl those 2 little puppies together. And I'm now right back on to what I need to do. Again, because it's such a common thing, I thought I would take that opportunity to show you, and now it's back to being perfect. It's a very easy fix. It doesn't take a lot to do it, and I know you guys can. Thanks so much.